Productions. Productions.
Wait, boy, if I didn't get to eat this roti today, I would have sure cried. Cry, boy? I's a big man, though. Men supposed to cry? I wonder if it's safe to cry in front of my woman. What women really looking for these days in a man? Are most women happily married or just happy to be married? Talk Heavy Podcast. Yes, yes, yes. Welcome again to yet another edition of the Talk Heavy podcast. I am yours truly, Justice, ready to start something. Press the excitement button. And this is the place where the vibes is light, but the talk is heavy. All right. You know, we always keep it real, keep it that nice, keep it light. All right. Have some heavy talk. We have a heavy conversation on the inside this evening. It's a wonderful Friday evening. Time flies when you're having fun. Just Wednesday, was here 2 days ago. Right, we had an amazing show. Shout outs to Ansel Bean. All right, and also with me, of course, is none other than my co-host, the General, Mr. CEO of Mended Studios, visionary, Mr. Randall Rodney. What's going on, bro?
Good evening, Jezreel. Good evening to our guests. Good evening to the world listening. Thank you again for having me to be a part of your podcast. And really, I'm excited with the topic already. I'm excited to hear where the discussion goes, you know. And say shout out special evening to Ansel Bean, man. Reflecting on Wednesday. I was really amazing time. And good evening to the producer as well. Julian, blessings behind the scenes, working so hard, doing a fantastic job.
For real. And we have, as our guests today, weighing in on the conversation, two lovely young ladies, goes by the name of Alexia Nelson and Simone John. How are you guys doing this evening, ladies? Alexia?
Good. Nice to be here.
All right. Nice.
Frank, nice to be here. It's nice to be here.
Simone, how are you good? Long time no see, Simone.
Good evening, everyone. I'm fine. Happy to be here as well.
Yeah, Simone and her dashing bright yellow on the inside. So we're talking about toxic people, right? Is there a nice way to cut off a toxic person? And when the topic was presented to these ladies earlier today, they seemed pretty excited. And I know they have a lot to share. They have a lot to say about this topic, Randall.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, because it's ladies first, Justice, well, you know, we just do it ladies first. So don't pose the first question to me, right?
All right, let me start with Alexia, right? Toxic people, right? We all might have dealt with somebody who might be classified as toxic. I'm not sure how I feel about the term to describe a person, but we could get much more into that later on. So let me start with you, Alexa. If you were to answer the question, right? Is there a nice way to cut off a toxic person? I want to find out by definition first. What should we classify? How do we define a toxic person?
First to begin with, a toxic person. I actually took some notes here. So I hope you don't mind me reading from it.
Yeah. You do your thing.
Yeah. So a toxic person basically is someone who is rather difficult to deal with. And causes conflicts. It's like conflict is their zen. Conflict and, bacchanal, basically. Our colloquial term is bacchanal. They love it. They love drama, bacchanal, you know. Right. But with all of that, it causes a lot of pain. It inflicts a lot of pain and emotional stress on their loved ones, their friends, their family, co-workers, spouse, significant other, whoever it may be that they are connected to. It causes a lot of stress for them. And so that is a toxic person. Should I go into some traits of a toxic person? Or should I leave that for Simone?
I definitely would like to hear the...
I didn't do that research.
Pardon?
She said she didn't do that research. I definitely would like to...
Off of toxicity. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I'm saying that I would be going off of the experiences that I would have had.
Oh, okay.
So you can go ahead and
I definitely would like it to elaborate more on like those traits and what makes a person quote unquote toxic. But I have one question before you do that, right? You mentioned that a toxic person is somebody difficult to deal with. But in my opinion, I think that anybody could be difficult to deal with. You know, your family member. Sometimes your children might be difficult to deal with. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Does that necessarily make them toxic, or is it that we saying that? Is it that we could say that if we saying that makes them toxic, are there certain levels of this toxicity?
Well, I think the traits will help with that. Will help narrow it down. Because that's a very good question there. You can't generalize a toxic, difficult, dealing with difficulties in individuals as someone being toxic. Then you'll be just crazily leaving it everybody as toxic. Yeah.
True.
And so, so let me just kind of narrow it down a bit rather. So some of the traits that you might notice, of course, you wouldn't notice you wouldn't deem someone as toxic just off the bat. They just start to work with them a week.
Right. Or
just meet them and dating them a month. You won't know until after a prolonged period of time. And then, you will start to see some of these traits, right? They are manipulative, right? Always lying or exaggerating the truth. I mentioned before, they love bacchanal, they love drama. I've had personal experiences, in relationship with persons, and it's like every time they're in drama, they bring it home, and it's the whole family involved with it, and everybody's emotionally stressed because why we love this person and we want the best for the person, and so they get that emotional drawn into the situation because they just want to make the pain go away. But then when they get when they find out the story, it's something that could have been handled differently, or maybe they should not have been in the first place, whatever. In most cases, they're self-centered, right? They don't consider how their actions are affecting others. With the choices that they make, they're very needy as well. I call it needy, or
victim. They
always need the attention. Right? Now, I talk about children here, obviously not, right? Because if I say when children toxic, no, children are toxic. They are at that stage where they need your parents, right? Well, we talk about people, adults, stuff like people like that who are always very needy. They always, they feel that they need your attention.
Right.
You must do something for them. And people like that, I would say, like I always say, if it is you're a really patient person, you tend to attract the kind of toxic, crazy ones. Like they kind of come, like you're like a magnet for them because they feel that they could manipulate, they could take advantage of you. You will always tell them yes, and you'll always be there, and so they ride on that. So they don't consider how, the emotional stress that they are causing you in their behavior. All they know is that they're getting all the support from you, and you had to be there for them and all of that. So they always want you to support them in every single thing, and nothing's wrong with that. But this is like a whole different level of, I would say, entitlement, in a sense.
Right.
You understand where I'm coming from?
I understand.
Erratic behavior. They never know what they're gonna do next. What story they're going to come up with next? What drama they're going to suck it in next? So you just never know. It's like a roller coaster.
So they tend to lie a lot, you see?
Yeah, they tend to lie a lot. So it's like you had to be wondering, God, wonder if this is real truth. I had to go and check better with somebody else. If I just go and ask somebody else and see, kind of a thing. And one more trait I'll mention is they don't have respect for boundaries. They don't have respect for boundaries.
All right.
So those are some of the traits. I hope that narrows down what difficult means when it comes to defining what a toxic person is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let me hear from the lady in yellow a little bit. You mentioned earlier you would be talking on your experiences in terms of, eliminating this quote unquote toxic individual. What were your strategies? Is there a nice way, or is there just you just give them the axe one time? What would you say?
Well, to be honest, to define or to actually point out or recognize that that person is really toxic, to me, it takes time, because you're not going to judge it over one or two situations. You actually have to be analyzing this person's patterns of behavior in order to define clearly that, they're toxic, or, to find out what really going on with them. To me, I think it's not an easy thing to do, to let down someone who seems to be toxic, because as Alexa says, this person really uses you as a crutch, especially if they recognize that you're a good listener, or you're a good friend, or you're a good support to them. To me, based on what I would have experienced, these people just exaggerate everything in their lives, because they just feel like everything just revolves around them. So, for instance, everything going on the workplace would affect them. The boss do them something today, the co-workers, the husband, the wife, the children, my father. It's like everything just revolves around you. They're so emotional that, everything is so exaggerated and seems to be such a huge problem, and they never recognize, their behaviors in these situations.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to just jump in here, even as I hear the definition of and defining this whole concept of a toxic person. And one of the things I'm zooming into is toxic behavior, because sometimes we could look at the person, but what we actually treat them with is the behavior, right? Because and I'm only getting this understanding after Alexia spoke, right? As she begins to just identify and categorize some of these behavioral traits, right? In terms of, you're manipulating people, you always have the victim approach and those things. How do you really treat and cut that toxic behavior away from you? And for me, she said something there that stands out, which is boundaries. How do you create these boundaries now without feeling guilty, right? Now, this is talk heavy, and it means that when we have situations where we experience toxic behavior, I want us to kind of look at it from a place that, for me, I am cutting away the toxic behavior, not really the person, right? I'm treating with the behavior. So it's not about you really, it's really about the way you're behaving. And I want to be able to treat your behavior and not from a place of guilt. So it means like if I should block you on Facebook, if I should unfriend you on Facebook, I don't want to carry around that guilt. I want to be able to set a boundary on your toxic behavior so it doesn't affect me, right? And so that I can treat with that toxicity, right? And not walk around saying, boy, I just blocked the girl, boy, I just blocked the man, boy, and sooner or later, they are gonna find out, hey, wait now, I'm not friends with this person anymore. What it is happening here? And perhaps that's another scenario altogether. But I do not want to walk around with the guilt. That's for me. I don't want to walk around with the guilt of when I respond by setting boundaries to your toxic behavior, right? I feeling bad, and I feeling I should not do that, and I second guessing myself. For me, this when you encounter toxic behavior, you have to treat it. You can't leave it up to somebody else really to treat with it. You have to treat it for yourself.
Communication.
And you have to look for some good. Yeah.
Let me throw this question, Randall, one time. Because
But
I
level,
go ahead, Simon.
based on the level of toxicity, it will be easier for you to do what needs to be done. So, for
Yes,
instance,
that's a
if
good
the
point.
person has narcissistic traits or kind of sociopathic, it's easy for you to do what you have to do without feeling any kind of remorse. But
So
if it is just a little toxicity that is just a little too much for you to handle, then the little human side will come in.
I see the merit in what you're saying, right? And I agree to a certain extent, but I feel a bit of a pushback with respect to because I think a lot of people nowadays, especially, they use the term toxic, and I've been saying quote unquote since the show began, because people use it so loosely. Any little thing, if you even pull up on somebody with something, they say you just toxic. It's like a kind of deflect mechanism to run away from being corrected or pull up on something. You understand? So who determines at any given point in time whether this person, X person, is actually toxic or being toxic at that point in time?
It'll be you, Justice. You to determine if this person, how does this person make you feel? Because if every time I come into your presence, you leave me feeling ripped apart, you leave me feeling as though everything I said, it was of no value. As you say something, like for me, one of the things that I look at a lot is negativity. Some people, you go around them and they're very negative. So something positive happens and they always find the negative in it, and they harp on the negative. And so for me, when I measure to see how much of this has been happening, and then I make a decision, right? And this is where the talk gets heavy, because really and truly, you may find yourself going into avoidance mode. You avoid them. You don't want to hear their input, because you've been around them for so long, hearing them and hearing their thoughts and opinions, whatever they would share, it always comes down to something negative. And you could really do without that. Sometimes you see a call come and this person negative, for sure. Something like early in the morning, they listen, hello.
But Randall, you see, this is why I'm thinking, right? You know, Ida's be the villain sometimes in the conversations, right? You see, I tend to separate how I feel from what the reality of any scenario is, because operating in your feelings a bit too much that is what causes communication barriers and builds that conflict, that friction. Because if it is me and you having a conversation and you saying something, you constantly saying something that rubbing me wrong and offending me, operating in my feelings, you always negative, this, that. There could be a reason for what you saying at that particular time. Instead of me coming and feeling offended and cutting you off and telling you toxic, let me have a conversation. Why you say that?
And
you understand?
For me, as you say, having that conversation, that's good. You can have the conversation. The point here is, if nothing changes, you can have another conversation if you want, if that's the boundaries you set, right? But there would come a point, and in almost a number of persons' life, where they decide, listen, this is it. I won't allow you to tell me anything again. I'm not allowing you into my space. Like some of the young people say, that you ain't getting no rent in my mind here. You ain't rent, because when you begin to talk, it frustrates me. It causes me to go into a particular mood, right? And so for me, I'm just saying that one of the ways that I would seek to cut a good way to cut somebody or somebody's behavior off is to set the boundaries without guilt, right? And so that'll be, for me, that is big way. I'm not going to be feeling guilty about having to say, even in your face, I find you toxic. Your behavior is toxic, and if it doesn't change, I'm telling you, listen, hasta la way going on. Yeah. Thank God I have not ever had to tell somebody, right? Hasta luego. You're toxic. I don't want no part of you. right? I've never had that opportunity, and I hope that I won't have to get that in that kind of place at all.
True. Let me just read some of the comments on Facebook real quick. Just want to say shout out to everybody joining on Facebook. Ja Angel, Ronnie, all right. Anthony J. McCloud say, my quick definition: a toxic relationship becomes unhealthy after long-term interaction or connection with that person. All right. He's also saying we need to learn to have uncomfortable conversations before the lock off. I agree with that. Like, bro, we cool and everything, but if every morning you ask him for money borrow, I will have to lock you off. The man in need of help, bro. Come on.
No money borrow, but he's not paying it back.
Every month?
That's I guess that's a different conversation. But guys, remember, we want to encourage you to share, interact with us, also our viewers on YouTube as well. We are live on YouTube. And if you want to give us a call and weigh in on the conversation, give us a call at 469-9112 via WhatsApp or mobile. Yeah, Simone?
Yes, I love the point of setting barriers that Randall would have spoken about, because it just brings back memory. I remember I had a friend, everything was wrong in her life, every single thing. And over time of getting those early phone calls and using me as that crutch, I started to feel like a garbage truck. You know, you just throw all the garbage in the truck. I started to feel like that. And it got so overbearing that I had to tell her, I said, you need to change. And if it is that you're not working on yourself, I don't think we could continue to be friends. That was the first conversation. The second time, I had to tell her, do not call me for a week. I can't take it anymore.
Good. Simone,
it is
rough
too much
girl.
for me to handle.
I thought I was bad.
Simone, make me think of a cactus there.
Yeah, I kind of a little rough around the edges.
I realize.
Jesus is working on that. But for real, you know, that amount of toxicity had me in such a bad place that I couldn't function. You know, so I had no choice to tell her I needed a break. I couldn't, there wasn't any better way to say it at that point in time because I was so overwhelmed.
Wow, I can relate, Simone, to that experience that you shared. I had a very similar experience like that. I had a friend who, she was very needy, and all her problems she dumped on me. I mean, I don't mind being a supportive friend, but then eventually, like you described, I became her emotional garbage can.
Yeah.
And then eventually I had to, it's a work friend. So every day you see this person. Wow. We used to go on lunch together every day and stuff like that worked well together. And then eventually it was as if like something just shifted. And I just felt as I can't take this anymore. I cannot continue to bear this. And I literally like stopped having lunch with her. Because I'm a person, if you come to me with a problem, I will give you a solution.
Definitely.
Maybe you could do it this way, that way, the other way. But after years of doing that, giving solutions, and the person just not changing, she keeps complaining. She would justify why she would do certain things or whatever the case is. And continues to use me as a garbage bag, a garbage bin. I didn't say anything. I just stopped going out to lunch with her. I just started saying for myself. To me, actions speak louder than words, you know? Right. So, of course, she couldn't understand why I was acting like that. I wasn't about to explain that to her because she wouldn't understand it. Because you see, these type of people, like I said, they're very manipulative and they really can't see that their actions are very toxic and they don't understand that it's affecting their friends and their loved ones, you know, very, very negatively. After some years, I felt like a weight. I felt very heavy because I was carrying on this burden, and, you know, and then I said, look, God, you have to take over this young woman. And so I'll keep her in prayer, keep her in prayer for today. But I've had to, with my actions, in my actions, that that established a boundary for her because I remember one time when we came to work and she tried to start a conflict with me. And I was very assertive to the point where she went in her office and she didn't come up for the day. Did not come up for the day. Right? So that's how far it went because that's the type of toxic person. She was very, very manipulative. And so, and like I said, they won't know these things off the bat. You have to spend time with this person to see that and to see those traits. And so it's affecting you. And then, because for me, she never made me feel unvaluable in any way. It's just that the constant dumping made me feel really emotionally stressed. And then when I gave my solutions, I realized she didn't want solutions. She just did a garbage bin, but I don't want to be a garbage bin anymore. And so, that was my experience with that individual. And so
I guess
I've had to put her in the right place. And that's where you set your boundaries. You have to, in your mind, of course, you have to get some measure of healing. You know, for me, it was just spending time with God and just allowing him to just, pull out all that garbage. And then mentally, you have to tell yourself, okay, this is as far as I go with this individual. So far as I let you in my life. And so that's where you establish your boundaries. And that's very important for your emotional health.
Right.
God will handle them. You need them to go. God will deal with them. Yeah. Trust me, God will, they'll be good. They'll be all right.
Right. Fair enough. I guess it's I guess we could say it's a bit easier to manage and deal with, a quote unquote toxic person on the job or somebody you have a friendship with. But Aaron George has an interesting question. He's asking, how do you deal with toxicity when it comes from in your own home? So we're talking about in the case of a family member or something.
Yeah, and that's a big point he's making there. And that's actually the reality for some people. Sometimes the person who is demonstrating that toxic behavior is the parent. You understand? The child can't relate to how the parent is operating. The parent judgmental, the parent talking down to them. Parent doesn't make them feel as though they could become anything. And in some other cases, you have a sibling who doing that, right? For me, I kind of just want to put out there one time that we can't fix everything. There's some things that you wouldn't be able to fix. You and I, we are not Mr. Fix It, right? We have, as Christians, we will have God on our side to give us grace to help us in difficult times. But we won't be able to fix every single thing. And when you see the closer you get to home, it's the hardest to fix because when hurt comes from somebody, the closest, right? That's one place that cutting off is a challenge. And if cutting off should take place, it is usually accompanied with drama. you understand? It's accompanied with drama. And you find that you can get drawn into the drama. So apart from just the toxic behavior, you find that you want to, my goodness, the neighbors, everybody know what's going on in the house because of the toxic behavior. So my advice would be, you can talk to the person, whether it's the parent, a spouse, a child, a sibling, whoever it is in the household, try talking to them. All right. But note that you may not be able to fix everything. And because you may not be able to fix, thanks for the agreement, son. And, when you have that kind of mindset, you're not setting yourself up because sometimes you could go into the situation thinking that it is going to be resolved when really and truly the situation has gone too far to be resolved and hurt. Once you are hurt now, that's a barrier. So you can't, you need a third party now to come in because if you begin to function from a place of hurt, you could make things even worse.
Yeah.
So yeah. And I love what Ronnie is saying. Most times the household you grew up in is what births the toxic people we deal with today. And that is a very, very big point, right? It's culture. That circle we grew up in the mother and father bacchanal, and you growing up in it, and well, you want to know where you get it from? Look right next. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Interesting. You would mention that and read that comments, right? I want to jump back to something Alexia had mentioned. She would have highlighted the fact that sometimes you want to know how it is all these toxic people just coming your way. What it is about you attracting these people, these certain characteristics, whether narcissism, selfishness, victim constantly, whatever the case is. Could it be a result of that? Probably there's some toxic traits that you possess yourself that might be attracting these people. How would you guys comment to that?
That's a very good question. That's a great question. It's just really
just really.
I don't know. I never thought of that actually. I'm a person. I always do introspection, and I know I have some ways that could change, right? So that's a good point. But that's something I must really look into and think about for real. That's a good question.
Right.
I never ever considered that. But I also think that it's like opposites attract. So Simone is the very supporting friend and the patient listening ear. My husband and I, my husband is much more patient than I am. He has had to deal with some toxic people. Yeah, everywhere, in the ministry and all. And sometimes I would ask him, I said, my God, how do you tolerate? Because even though I would be patient with some persons and listen and stuff like that, my husband, oh my God. We have had to deal with a lot of people who, no matter how much we counsel and stuff like that in our lives, they're not seeing any moves to change, but they're still coming, to you and complaining or who asking for money. We've had a relative where the person can't keep her job, no matter how much they try to give her a job. She can't keep her job, and always, and they will come to us and as though, as though we're working for them as well. Yeah. And this was going on for many, many years. And so in that instance, I've had to try to, as much as possible, avoid. So there are many ways that they can handle it and deal with it. Either confront, like Simone did, right? Simone have had to confront and then eventually set the barrier, right? Because at the end of the day, you have to safeguard your space, your emotional space. Because if it is that you are also stressed and you are also
toxic.
Yeah, toxic. Because sometimes the toxic it spills on you, Trust me. Yeah. It spills over on you. So if it is you are toxic and you date them and you become toxic,
or could it
then
be that
how much have you to really beat it to the world or to your family? How much of help you could really be?
Or could it be that? Or could it be that you allow this so-called toxicity to spill across on you? Because we are the only ones who have control over the things we allow to affect us and the people we allow in our space.
That sounds good, just real. But I would disagree just a bit.
Okay.
Because can you imagine being a pig farmer? Going in a pigsty ready to sell about them pigs and not get some amount of dirt on you?
And what?
And so it's not getting mud on you, being a pig farmer, seeing about pigs. It's an analogy I'm using. And so sometimes that is a good point in making there, but it has its limitations. Because if it is you're dealing with messy people, you're gonna get some amount of stain on you. I mean, I guess that's why I need to pray every day and ask God to help every day and ask God to wash you every day, whatever it is.
And I agree with you, Alexia. You usually resemble your friends. If you hang around, and I always say this, hang around the people that you want to be like.
Right, Randall, that's my point. That's my point exactly, because in relation to the analogy she drew with the pigs, no, that to me that you can look at it differently, because you should know and understand that the mud comes with the territory with rearing and taking care of the pigs. So in that instance, it doesn't the mud doesn't necessarily have to be something negative. And just as you just said, you mentioned, you are a reflection of the people you hang around, your friends, your peers, right? So if it is that you find that you attracting all these toxic people, people who just not really healthy for your mental and all around development, then you had to look within yourself and say, wait, like I toxic too.
Change environment.
You understand?
Change environment. I think at that point, Justice, you're gonna have to change environment, because you want to always be aware of your environment. Many of us, if the reason why we get in trouble is because we're not paying attention to our environment, right? Who is around us and what are they giving off? Everybody is shedding. And I want to say this, just show this in the mix, because Alexia and Simon made some really nice points. I want to say that in all of us have a little bit of toxic. In all of us have a little bit of toxic, whether we like it or not. There is some toxicity inside of us. And the truth is that it will take a lack of cutting off and somebody having a conversation with us to be able for us to discover some of those toxicity. So some of the ways we behave, right? Brushing off somebody, brush them off, and you ain't care what they have to say in business. They can talk how much they want. It don't matter. It don't matter. And somebody saying, that way you're doing that, I don't really like it. You just normally brush me off, and you're sure as though whatever I say, you ain't really care. And it will take somebody coming to you now, not cutting you off, but saying, you ever thought about this? I remember my wife, she would always tell me about the Jahari window. Ooh. What people could see about you that you can't see about yourself, right? And really and truly, it will take for us to do more listening in order to know how much toxicity we have, and that is coupled with having the right people around us, because there are some people that will be around us that will never say to you where they feel they're going off.
Yes, people.
Right? Yes, men. Yes, women. Everything is just yes. You're good. Yeah, don't bother with that, this, that. But they know that it is destructive, but they don't have the grit. I love to use that word. The grit to tell you, right? That your behavior not nice. It's not nice, and you have to change it. That's a true friend. I remember sometimes the people right around me, right inside Mendon here, had to tell me some hard facts. And the hard facts, sometimes it is hurting. And you want to say them toxic, they hate it on you, they envy you, this, that. But the truth is, it's also help. So if the talking to the person is help, then I say, listen, let's just accept that help and make a change, right? And on the flip side of that too, you have persons, you just really cannot talk to them. They are never wrong. They are always right. They will always have the final say. And there's just nothing you can really do about it, right?
That's it.
And you could pray. Let me just say there's nothing you can pray. You can pray about it, but the hard facts in talk heavy is, and I want to say it clear, there may be some cutting off where you have to simply say to somebody, listen, you remember Lot? You remember Lot and Abraham?
Yes.
And listen, clear case in point. They were, it wasn't between Lot and Abraham, it was the men that were there. Their men, they begin to fight, they begin to have difference of opinion, they begin to have issues. And when Abraham realized what was going on, you know what happened? He said, boy, Lot, here what's going on. Here what's going on. You see, look, as far as you want that, you choose, look, pick, and take your men, right? Because he wanted peace. He wanted peace. I wouldn't go out on a limb and say Lot was toxic, but the men they were fighting, so it had to have some toxicity inside of it.
Yeah.
And so they had to separate. And so not saying that you separate from somebody or you cut off somebody, right, means that it's necessarily bad. It may work out the best for the both persons.
True.
Right. I generally I have a problem with the use of the term toxic to describe another person, right? Because whether we like it or not, there could be a great possibility where somebody could be claiming Randall toxic, and we know Randall personally. We know that to be false, but the fact that some people have a particular level of influence and following, the use of these particular words would have the potential to damage Randall's character. You understand? So that's why I tend to generally have a problem with the terms. There are certain terms as well that seem to be like a trend. You know, people using them real loosely, and they have the potential to hurt a person's character. You know, what would you comment to that, Randall?
Well, people will come up with their idea of you, and once they are speaking the truth, you begin to now do some self-introspection, right? Listen to what they have to say. Don't just dispel it. But when it's erroneous, when it is erroneous and, it's wrong, then you have an opportunity to engage them, not hostile or not being hostile, of course, but you want to have a conversation. You understand? And you express, I didn't like that. When you did this, when you said that, you're sullying my name, this and that. And I've had that before, I've had that before where persons actually.
In most instances, the damage already done.
And so it for me, right, I go to a place where I really have to now accept that it was already put outside there. And all I have to now live in is the truth that this is not the case, right? That what was said were lies. And I don't have to go about justifying myself. There's an adage that says time justifies your situation. Time. Right. And so when people get to see who you really are, they get to say, nah, boy. When that man tell me that man like he was lying, boy, I interact with Randall and boy, that man is a real sweet bread. You understand? You're that kind of thing. You hear how justice gets.
Yes, man, about sweet bread. But I want to hear from Simon. With respect to what I just said, the harmful use of the term itself, because I honestly think that we should just eliminate it altogether. When we're talking about people, human beings, that we don't use that word toxic. You understand? To prevent it from being erroneously used.
Well, in that case, Justice, if it is we have to eliminate that term, we'll have to use some terms that people wouldn't like, again, because you might have to start calling people narcissistic, sociopaths, gaslighters, extremely sensitive and always, acting a fool. Or something like that. So yes, we may tend to use the term toxic a little too loosely for some persons, but probably on our end, we need to figure out if we're going to go with what they say or if we're going to have those experiences for ourselves and then, make our own assumptions. Because sometimes some people just exaggerate the truth or make up an entire story in their heads because they don't want to, probably conform or for whatever the reason may be. Because some people, they really, really, really need some help. So for some of these people that we may be even saying that toxic, they need help, and sometimes us being a good friend, we may have to say, hey, you need some help, I would recommend that you could probably try talking to this person, somebody who's professional,
All right. Guys, remember you can give us a call and weigh in on the conversation at 4699112. I want to read an interesting comment here from Anthony. He's saying, I personally would encourage toxic behaviors in people. For example, my willingness to help or listen would encourage the other person's toxic overuse of the generosity. It's very interesting.
I don't quite understand.
I was waiting. I was waiting for you. I was waiting for you to comment.
I don't quite understand Anthony's point of view. I think Anthony should call and explain himself. It's a little bit cloudy for me, right? That example is just, I don't know. Anthony, where you get that from, right? Call in and explain yourself, right? I want to say that when it comes to you're not going and tell people you're toxic. You're not going about either texting people and say, boy, I just meet this toxic person today, and boy, when I tell you they're real toxic. I mean, you're not going about that way. Your interactions, it was unpleasant. Use some diplomatic words. It was an unpleasant experience. And after that unpleasant experience, I hope to not have that experience again. And if that continues over time, then you can come up to it with yourself, come up with your mind and say, listen, yeah, this person's toxic. And I'm going to have to make some adjustments. I feel that I'm going to, they're not going to get the acts right down, but I'm going to have to set the boundary acts. You understand? I'm not going to allow you to cross it. I'm telling you, there's some people, if you don't tell them where it stops, they are going to take advantage of you. They will not. I always say this, and Carissa, being if you're listening, if you're locked on, I remember having a conversation with Carissa, and we were talking, and I was saying that you have to be able to teach people how to treat you. Yeah, that's your responsibility. That's not other people's responsibility. That's your responsibility. You need to teach people how to treat you, and only when you do that, then you can expect the treatment that you deserve. You understand? And so that's how I function. I Justice, what happened?
Teach people to I mean, thinking. I guess I think each person should have at least a foundational courtesy of kindness. At least we, of course, the world doesn't owe us any kindness, but at least we would expect that if you consider yourself a decent enough person in society, you would have some level of decency in treating other people, teaching somebody how to treat you, I guess, would come in terms of after, having a particular rapport or conversation with the person. So I guess, yeah.
And to add to it, I'd like to hear from some of the viewers too, in terms of how do they feel? Should they have to interact with somebody that is toxic? I want to put toxic now because Justice isn't feeling good with the word toxic. But how do you feel? Because I'm certain that the persons listening to that they have experienced some toxic behavior, and perhaps they may not want to go into the depth of what exactly happened, but they were able to treat with a toxic person with toxic behavior. And how did they feel? Because as I said earlier when we started, the whole concept of this toxic behavior, you have guilt. And a lot of the times when you want to treat with somebody that is toxic, you find that after you block them on WhatsApp, after you unfriend them on Facebook, after you pass them, you totally ignore their presence somewhere. After you do that, you have now the mental part to treat with, which is that you passed the girl straight, you passed the man straight, you didn't say hello, right? You didn't answer when they say good morning, and those kind of things, because you remember it's emotions as well inside of there. And it can cause you to behave in ways that you don't really like, but it is there. How did you respond to a situation like that? Justice, I put in a question to you. You ever had to unfriend somebody on Facebook?
Unfriend?
Yeah, unfriend.
Yeah, not necessarily, because I felt like they were toxic towards me.
So you're just unfriending people just so?
If I don't know you really and your account inactive and I suspect you might be a troll, unfriend, yeah. If your account inactive for years upon years. But we have a caller on the inside. Let me just take this call real quick, right? Hello, good evening. Talk heavy. Hello, good evening. Hello?
Yeah, you hear me?
Yeah.
Right. Anthony here. Just want to clarify the comment I made earlier.
Right.
Good evening, Anthony.
So, good evening. Hi. So basically, we were talking about, at the time of the comment, we were talking about how you could be toxic as well, right?
Mm.
And the comment was really just to point out that a toxic trait doesn't necessarily have to be an evil trait. So me and how I operate, I might be doing something out of good, but it might be encouraging the toxicity. You know, I may not be a toxic person myself, but I can still attract toxic people based on how I do things. And it's really up to me to manage how people interact with me. So therefore, I may not be toxic, but my actions could still encourage toxicity, if that makes sense.
Okay, let me put it in a scenario. In the movie Hitch, remember Hitch with Will Smith? And Will Smith matching up all these women with men. And he made this a study, right? Mm-hmm. And you find that these women, he knew exactly what they wanted. He did the research, he put the men, the situation in place, everything, and then bam, you see relationships kick off. And he is known as the love doctor. But when persons drill into what was going on, they found that Will Smith would have been a toxic person, because what he was actually doing was that in some of the situations, some women got their heart broken, right? They got their heart broken, and but he had nothing to do with it, but he had a stigma, right? So in a nutshell, if I could just put this in a little nutshell, Will Smith, he is doing a good because he's trying to just match up people, finding their commonalities and matching them up together. But yet he is being branded because there's some people who want to use his good, his skill, use it for bad, right? I don't know if that in itself is a scenario that I could use, Anthony, to show where somebody's doing something good and it brings out a toxic behavior. But in the end, Will Smith has to, he vindicates himself by saying, listen, I didn't do all these things. Some of the people you see they're doing it was just out of natural chemistry. All he did was just do the research, find out what people like, and they came together. That's all he did. He wasn't toxic to them. He didn't mean to be toxic or any kind of thing like that. If that answered the question, Anthony.
Yeah, I think I agree with you mostly because it makes us think that, okay, so there are different definitions or subsects of toxicity. So you could be just a toxic person with bad traits, or your good traits could be used in a toxic way, if that makes sense.
And you see the problem I have in with the term, right? Because now we see a gray area is being created, right? So initially, the word toxic means something poisonous. It's used to describe dumping of waste, that type of thing. So now we see in that a person could be doing something out of the good of their heart and still be toxic, and then it could have negative people, outright negative, still be toxic as well. So it's like, I don't know. That's why I don't like the term. I don't like the use of the term.
Could I say, I think that it's important for persons to understand what toxicity is about and be honest with themselves. If they find out the definition and see some of the traits themselves.
A person would never. How often do you think
a person would admit?
Right? You understand what I'm saying?
That's a very, very rare occurrence, right?
Exactly.
But the thing is, people just need to understand what it is. And just really have a good point. This term is really being bandied about and being used loosely. Like so many other terms I could call right now.
Amongst
That's a whole other
others.
different discussion.
Amongst others.
But it is, I think too, it's because everybody is broken to some extent, whether it's the perception or the emotions in some way. And so they perceive things of that brokenness, whether it be negative or positive, they perceive it based on that level of brokenness. And so that's why I say it's important that people are educated as relates to exactly what toxicity is, what a toxic person is. When you say that a person is toxic, what are you referring to? What behaviors?
And Alexia, and that will be relative to each individual. So because every one of us will have now a relative toxic.
Right.
You understand?
Yeah.
Because
Right.
what may be considered toxic for me, you might watch that and say, Randall, one too, boy.
Very small thing.
Yes, small
Yes.
thing, it's true.
Small thing, yes,
It's
Simone.
true.
That small
Yeah.
thing. You know?
Small thing, I accept that. But and you have a point there because there's some people, they would have grown up in, like, let's say a family with parents or grandparents, generations of people, or maybe a whole culture that has been displaying some toxic behaviors. And they see nothing wrong with that. In fact, they institutionalize it. Right? And then in another culture, it's like, oh my God, no, that is not, just doesn't happen here.
Taboo.
You know? And so up to yesterday, I had a conversation with someone, and then I realized, okay, let's chalk it up to culture, because my view of it is completely different, of the issue is completely different, but I realize it's based on how persons are encultured as well. And so, yeah, like I say, people need to be educated, and I see nothing wrong with informing whole societies that probably this behavior is wrong, and see how, and show them how it's detrimental to their loved ones in the society, and that's the way they will know. You understand? They need to know.
Yeah. On that note,
But Alexa,
go ahead.
Alexa stated that, we should share with them, what are the toxic traits or the things that they could work on. A lot of these times, these people, they cannot handle the truth, right? They cannot see or identify with these behavioral traits as even being bothersome in any type of way or being harmful, right, to another person, far less even themselves, So sometimes we need to not even try to help them, but just suggest that, again, they need help, right? Probably a psychologist might have to step in, or a counselor, right? That would be able to really unpack these things in a way that they would be able to connect with. Because sometimes they just can't hear you because all they see you as is that support factor in their lives.
True.
Yeah.
True.
That's
Valid point. Valid point. Because you're so close.
Yeah.
I would also call that you're so familiar with you. They won't take what you have to say seriously.
I'm seeing
that is another factor as well.
I'm seeing
close to the situation.
I'm seeing a very interesting question in the comment section on Facebook from Aaron George. Thanks for your contribution. But just before we jump into that, I want to jump into the ad we have to run. We're just gonna pay a bill and we'll be right back.
Bloody Samaritan, protect my energy from your bad aura. Now my pastor say I be mine, heal everything I desire. I go receive my rhythm, flow like a river. If you get your back, come on, go and sit down. I go just para, come on my trigger. I go just stay, follow my dreams. I'm feeling fine, so fine. I'm taking dynamite. No, you can't go lie. You know I'm just that shy. No. Protect my energy from your bad aura. Now my pastor say I be mine, heal everything I desire. I go receive.
Yes, and that is Shimalicious Pizza, home of the Saltfish Pizza in Labray South. You can contact them at 346-8280 or 283-2332. All right. So Aaron George, he's asking a very interesting question. He's asking, what would be the best thing to do if you actually identify toxic qualities in yourself? Anybody? Any takers?
Yeah, I think what you can do, you can the very first thing you could pat yourself on your back and say, thank you, Lord, that I've identified that I have some toxic traits. That's a very great place to be. And then you begin to apply pressure on every single one of them, as much of them as possible, to root them out, right? It will take time, but I am certain that with the help of God, you could pull them out. You can root them out and make a change. And so you're not just making a change. You remember you have to replace it with something. So if it is let's stay with the negativity. If you're always negative, then listen, you are going to become a positive person. Yeah. Right? You'll be optimistic in your conversations. You understand? And that kind of stuff. So that's my contribution for you, Aaron. I think that's one of the ways to treat it.
Rodney, I really like that response. I think to add to that also, I think much more important than identifying a toxic person is just exactly that, identifying whatever, so quote unquote toxic traits you have within yourself. To me, that is the epitome of maturity. I would say definitely. So yeah, we just coming down to the end of this Friday's episode of Talk Heavy Podcast. Like, yo, time really flies. You see, when conversation going heavy and nice just like this, it's like the time does fly. You don't know where the time went. Just 7 o'clock we jump on here, right? So just to kind of wrap things up, a little closing statements. All right, Simone. Simone, I'm gonna lie, you're looking like a flower blooming tonight, you know. Go ahead.
The grace of God, and the light.
Right.
As you stated, it's very important to also identify toxic traits in ourselves. I really, really, really love that point. So sorry to go back on it. I really believe that we should be constantly working on ourselves and working towards evolving and becoming better people. That way we'll be able to really help others and share, what we've been through, how we've gotten through it, and show people, that growth journey, so really working on yourself is very important. Also protecting your space, where we are setting the boundaries, so that we don't allow persons to really fill us with things that, probably are negative, not of God. We really need to protect our mind, protect our soul sometimes, because we may allow people that shouldn't be in our space around us. So it's really important that, we just be cognizant of who we are becoming, and the types of people that we want to keep around us, because it is said that we are the complement of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. So if it is that we are spending time with negativity or with negative persons, we don't want that to rub off on us. So we really have to have a vision as to who we would like to be and how we would like to help others.
All right. Nice. Fair enough. Alexia.
Sorry, I'm here with this boy. All right. So my closing remarks would be, from everything that that we discussed, prevailing point of being honest, I think, for those who are toxic, persons who are toxic, I'm pretty sure that those that love you would have said that, hey, you need to stop this, you need to stop doing that. But like the other point that was prevailing in this discussion is that most toxic people, they can't see where they're going wrong. But I want to challenge you to hear when your loved ones say to you that they need to change some ways. Open the ears and listen to that, because they love you the most and they want the best for you.
True. Fair enough.
Yeah, so you may not see it, but you can certainly hear and listen. And for those who are in it, because we also discussed there are varied degrees of it, and people have varied tolerance levels of dealing with toxic people. Then they reach their wits' end. I would say to really make your boundaries, make clear boundaries, and pray for that person. I mean, pray for that person. They need your prayer, because they are broken. They are really broken, and they probably have gone through some more such trauma themselves, and they basically have no control over their behavior.
Yeah.
You can see that what they're doing is wrong. So you have to pray that the Holy Spirit takes over and works on them. Some people, they pray for years and they don't see the issues until, whenever they get the epiphany, whenever the Holy Spirit or some other experience causes them to see where they're wrong. And so it could be family, especially those, you have the family that is very toxic. You have to pray. Just keep them in prayer and just trust God. Don't be bitter against them either. Don't let that bitterness get inside of there.
Yeah.
Just forgive and you allow the Lord to do what he has to do. Like I say, don't feel bad about even cutting off some people, because it's your freedom at the end of the day. You forgive, and if it is you have to move on, then you move on. But that can't be without giving chances, and hoping, stuff like that. I mean, even if you cut them off, you might still want to hope and pray, because God does all things. But where it's very, very toxic, and especially where it's so detrimental to your life, you're gonna have to get out of it. All right. And again, toxic persons, please listen to your loved ones. They're not just telling them because they hating on you, because you just be miserable. They just be miserable, or they just want to spoil your fun. No, they really love you and want the best for you. And so, yeah, open the ear.
Fair enough. Open the ears.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Rodney.
Yeah, well, I just want to jump on and say that in the Word of God, there is some advice, and the Bible tells us that bad company ruins good morals. Yeah? Bad company ruins good morals. And Aaron kind of steered us into a place that I think that was very, very vital, by looking at us, looking at within us that toxicity, that toxic behavior inside of us. And, David, he said, create in me a clean heart and renew a right spirit within me. He wasn't dealing with anybody else. He was dealing with himself. And so before we try to fix the toxicity in others, my words will be, fix the toxicity in ourselves. That's it for me. Thank you very much again for having me here, Justice. And you beautiful ladies accompanying us tonight, man. Great job.
Awesome. So yeah, where I stand in terms of the use of the word, like I think if you're using a word like that, toxic, at least have some kind of solid evidence to prove that, hey, this person is toxic. You understand? So that's just my take with it as well. So just want to thank each and every one for being here with us. Of course, Simone, Alexia, Randall always on show. You know what I mean? We want to thank the entire community out there, all the viewers looking in on Facebook and on YouTube. Right? We want you to continue sticking on with us and viewing, interacting. Even the people who might come on later on, you weren't able to come on and enjoy the live, but you can still look at the reruns. It will be on our Facebook page, Mended Studios Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe to the Talk Heavy Podcast YouTube page. Right? We want to get as much people on there, build up that live. We have a lot more content. Like, yo, for real, just look out for a lot more content from the Talk Heavy Podcast team. All right, so this has been another great edition, another heavy conversation. We'll be back here on next Wednesday, same time, 7 p.m., and on Friday, 7 p.m. as well. But before that, look out for Nautical Hour on Mended Studios starting from 3 a.m. This Monday coming next week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Don't forget to pray in the morning. All right, so once again, thank each and every one of you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again. But before we go, we leave you with the sound of Collis Durante, Make a Better World. Do enjoy. Have a great night.
So we can make a better world. We can make a better place to live in. We can make a better world, yeah. In this world that we're living in, it's only time for the reckoning, yeah. Every day now it feels so cold, because mankind is ruining the very place that we have to walk, killing off the faces that we have to talk. It's a dangerous world, yeah. And we've got to change today. So stop the hickory, the duck, and all the bickering, because the lights of the world seems to be flickering. Come off that Samsung version that you're listening, and hold a real vibe with your sister and your brethren. And when we come together as one, we can have a brand new day, a new day under the sun, yeah. We can make a better world. We can make a better place to live in. We can make a better world, yeah. Alright, alright. We can make a better world. We can make a better world. We can make a better world. We can make a better place to live in, yeah. We can make a better world. So we can make a better world. We can make a better world. Alright, alright. We can make a better place to live in. We can make a better world, yeah. I say the times get red and red are still to come. We have to stand up firm here in a Babylon. You got to believe and know that you're a chosen one, and let your light shine for the world so they can understand that the places we have to walk, the beautiful faces that we have to talk, makes it a wonderful world, yeah. So we've got to change today. So stop the hickory, the duck, and all the bickering, because the lights of the world seems to be flickering. Come off that iPhone version that you're listening, and hold a real vibe with your sister and your brethren. And when we come together as one, we can have a brand new day, a new day under the sun, yeah. So we can make a better world. We can make a better place to live in. We can make a better world, yeah. Alright, alright. We can make a better world. We can make a better world. We can make a better world. We can make a better place to live in. We can make a better world. 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 Alright, we can make a better world. Make a better place to live in, yeah. We can make a better world. 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 We can make a better place to live in. We can make a better world. We can make a better world. We can make a better world. Alright. So we can make a better world. I know. So we can make a better place to live in. Oh yeah, we can make a better world. We can make a better world. So we can make a better world. I know we can make a better world. Alright. So we can make a better world. It's true. So we can make a better world. Me and you. We can make a better world. 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 We can make a better world.